Ziad Samir Jarrah was born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1975 in the town of Tanak. Born to wealthy parents, his mother, Nafisa Jarrah, and his father, Samir, had lucrative jobs, one as a teacher, Samir as a restaurant owner, in the tight knit city. Ziad was known as a happy go lucky sort, while the parents were simply relaxed people without any religious convictions between them and the rest of the family. In his childhood, he had always wanted to fly planes, but his family discouraged it, especially his father, Samir. I stopped him from being a pilot, his father said, when he told the Wall Street Journal. I only have one son, and I was afraid that he would crash. Ziad went to the Al Hikmah school in Ashraf, a mainly upper class Christian district in East Beirut. In the following years, Ziad moved to Ma Elias Batina School in Wata al Misabeth, near the beach, an expensive co-educational private school. He would make friends along the way with his socially infectious persona. He enjoyed girls and enjoyed going on to social gatherings. Many of Ziad's friends would have a Christian background, which wasn't unheard of in Lebanon, home to many Christian families. Ziad would move out of his upbringing of Lebanon and into many areas of the world. From 1995 to 96, while Jarrah was still living in Yemen, according to his family, somebody of the same name rented an apartment in Brooklyn, New York. The landlords there claimed it was the same Ziad Jarrah as in the FBI photographs, but was never actually confirmed. Rumors would still float around the affable Jarrah. One of those rumors had him living in another part of Brooklyn, New York. The Los Angeles Times reports, quote, another man named Ishan Jarrah lived with Ziad, drove a livery cab, and paid the $800 monthly rent. The men were quiet, well-mannered, said hello and goodbye. Ziad carried a camera and told his landlords he was a photographer. He would disappear for a few days on occasion, then reappear. Sometimes a woman who appeared to be a prostitute arrived with one of the men. Me and my brother used to crack jokes that they were terrorists, end quote. Jason Matos, a construction worker who lived in the basement and whose mother owned the house, is the person who quoted from out of the Los Angeles Times. However, the actual Ziad Jarrah is still in his home country of Lebanon at this time. He is studying in a Catholic school in Beirut and is in frequent contact with the rest of the family. His parents drive him home to be with the family nearly every weekend, and they are in frequent contact by telephone as well. In April of 1996, Ziad would leave Beirut for the first time to study in Germany. He would bring his cousin Salim to both enroll at the University of Greifswald to take a certificate course in German. They would both rent an apartment together and both lived a very single lifestyle. Both attended the local discotheque and were enamored with the single lifestyle, drinking and dating. But in just a couple of weeks, Ziad would begin his journey that would leave his family in a state of disbelief that still lingers to the present time. He would immediately join a nearby Islamic center for study, and within a few weeks, Ziad began to associate with a person by the name of Abdurrahman al-Makhari, a local ultra-Orthodox Muslim who raises money for the militant Palestinian group Hamas and is monitored by the German intelligence service BFV. Makhadi was also an imam at Greifswald Mosque. Known for his very orthodox stance, he was known to give fiery speeches about Western imperialism. German intelligence would monitor the man and the mosque, and by September of 1997, Jarrah enrolled at the University of Applied Sciences in Hamburg to study aeronautical engineering. Jarrah switched majors while at Greifswald from his medical studies to engineering, although it is not definitively known why he chose engineering. According to his future girlfriend, Azel Senguin, it was due to the fact that Ziad claimed that no medical school would accept him and that he had always had a long passion for aviation. Months later, Jarrah would visit the Al-Quds Mosque in the city of Hamburg. Just like how Makhadi was an enforcer of Salafist Islam at Greifswald, Jarrah would commiserate with the mosque's most ardent members. Attending the mosque at this time were Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Shehi, Ramzi bin al-Shib, Munir al-Montasek, and Saeed Bahaji. Other notable, more veteran members would include Muhammad Haydar Zamar and Marmun Darkanzali, both Syrian Muslims with contacts into al-Qaeda. Zamar was also considered a high-level contact with important Syrian criminals. Such importance German authorities had in Zamar that he was constantly monitored by the BFV. The mosque was run by a noted unruly and radical Salafist preacher named Muhammad Fazizi. Fazazi's sermons would become emotionally wrought with vitriol for Western values, along with a penchant hatred for the Israeli government led by the Likud party, who were continually demoralizing the Palestinian residents. Fazazi would serve his most emotionally driven sermons with just the more radical believers. Some of them would become known as the Hamburg Cell. Under constant manipulation from Fazazi and the presence of Muhammad Haydar Zamar and Marmun Darkanzali, the Hamburg group would become more radical by the passing day. Zamar would have links to Makadi. The German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung will say that al-Makadi, also known as Abu Muhammad, is known to the German Security Service, BFV, as a Hamas activist and instigator, and that it is therefore difficult to imagine that the 26-year-old Jarrah was not also registered by the machinery of the intelligence services. Jarrah did not lose contact with al-Makadi and kept in touch. Jarrah later travels around Germany with al-Makadi and meets other radicals. Makadi runs the local mosque and makes money by selling special Arab food he purchases in Hamburg. Jarrah also meets other Muslim extremist preacher, Marcel K., and he is the vice president of the Islamic Center in the North Rhine-Westphalia. In 1997, Jarrah left Greifswald and instead began studying aerospace engineering at the Applied Sciences in Hamburg while working at a Volkswagen paint shop in nearby Wolfsburg. By around this same year, Jarrah would meet Azel Senguin while at university. Both would be enamored with one another in quick time. Together, they would make a rather normal, relative, decent couple filled with many adventurous times. Although they never lived with one another, Senguin and Jarrah would visit each other on the weekend. At this time, Jarrah was renting an apartment from Rosemary Cannell, who would paint a portrait of him that he would bring back as a gift for his mother in Lebanon on December 1997. During the summer of 97, Jarrah would travel around Germany with his Islamic contacts. One such man he kept close contact with is known only as Marcel K., also known as Marcel Hussein K. Jarrah would rely on keeping close contact with this mysterious imam and throughout the rest of Jarrah's life until that fateful day of September 11, 2001. Jarrah would call Marcel K. when things were problematic. And little is known about Marcel K. But once the vice president of the Islamic Center in North Rhine-Westphalia, while Jarrah was in flight training in Florida in 2000, he would keep calling Marcel K., even just days before the September 11th attacks. On November 1st, 1998, Muhammad Atta, Ramzi Shib, and Marwan al-Shehi moved into a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room, 1 kitchen, all together at Marienstraße. Here they formed the secretive Hamburg Cell, which also included other minor participants in the 9/11 plot, while also under the constant tutelage and direction of Muhammad Haydar Zamar, who would live amongst the group from time to time, along with Ramzi bin al-Shib also making the rounds. Al-Quds Mosque Imam Muhammad Fazizi would continue to influence the young Jarrah as they would continually meet. It would have a growing effect even at home with his girlfriend. Ziad's new piety caused problems with Azel almost immediately. He criticized her choice of friends, the way she dressed, and what she drank. Throughout the relationship, according to their correspondence, she railed at Ziad for not telling her more, for not sharing more of himself. Ziad Jarrah's uncle, Hassan al Jarrah, would be the only family member that claimed to have noticed the slight changes in Ziad's attitude to become a more religious Muslim. Hassan al Jarrah would later remark, quote, "Whatever happened to Ziad, it didn't happen in Beirut or in Greifswald. None of us noticed any change in him until he went to Hamburg in the spring of '97 to do his university degree." End quote. Ziad responded that he told her what he felt she needed to know. While in Hamburg at the school in the University of Applied Sciences, he would frequent Al-Quds. Here he would meet a Yemeni named Ramzi bin al-Shib, a regular, at the mosque, and through him, a group of multinational Arab men, just then beginning to figure out how they could contribute to the jihad. From here, Jarrah would befriend Muhammad Atta and Marwan al-Shehi. Although German intelligence would later claim that at no point was there any evidence to suggest that Ziad Jarrah had physically met with Atta or al-Shehi during their time together while Al-Quds, they would later go on to quote, "The only information we have connecting the three Hamburg suspects is the FBI's assertion that there is a connection," said a high-ranking police source involved in the investigation. "We have come across absolutely no evidence of our own." End quote. The only link to Jarrah and the Hamburg cell, a single wedding photo from Saeed Bahaji's wedding in 1999. Federal prosecutor Kay Neem disclosed the first hint of a connection when he alluded to having a photo showing Jarrah at the 1999 wedding of a fugitive known to espouse fanatic views, Saeed Bahaji, who once roomed with Atta and al-Shehi. As Jarrah became infused with the ultra-Orthodox mindset of the Hamburg cell, his family back home began to worry. They sent emissaries to talk to him, threatened to cut off his monthly stipend, and according to investigators, his father once feigned a heart attack in hopes that Ziad would come home. It didn't work. He grew more and more involved with his new friends. He saw his girlfriend Azel less. She visited Hamburg a few times, but felt unwelcome. On at least one occasion, Ziad abandoned her to his room to spend more time with his friends, whom she never met. Jarrah, however, was not close to the Hamburg cell group led by Atta, and Jarrah lived in his own apartment and did not spend as much time with them. During the year 1999, the Hamburg cell would finally meet up in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and meet with high-level al-Qaeda leaders such as Osama bin Laden, Mohammed Atef, and other notable al-Qaeda operatives. How they came about to visit Afghanistan is now under question. With the current trial of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed at Guantanamo Bay, former detainee Mohammed Aoud Slahi was suspected as the high-level al-Qaeda contact who influenced the Hamburg cell members to not fight in Chechnya but in Afghanistan. This story is now proven to be false. Slahi would undergo years of torture at CIA black sites and was released later by the U.S. secret courts due to immense pressure from local human rights activists who forced the State Department to release Slahi when it was found out that he left al-Qaeda many years before the Hamburg cell even formed. Muhammad Atta, Ramzi bin al-Shib, Marwan al-Shehi, and Ziad Jarrah would all supposedly swear loyalty, bayat, to bin Laden and join in their operation in attacking the United States. The members of the Hamburg cell were a boon to the 9/11 plot, which Khalid Sheikh Mohammed allegedly had proposed to bin Laden back in 1996. The Hamburg students were fluent in English, educated, accustomed to the Western lifestyle, radically Islamic, and capable of learning to pilot aircraft. Bin Laden and Mohammed Atef wasted no time in assigning the Hamburg group to the most ambitious operation yet planned by al-Qaeda, codenamed the Plains Operation. During their stay in Tanakh Farms in Afghanistan, both Atta and Jarrah would conduct a video will of their own. This video was obtained by Special Forces in 2001 during the invasion of the country due to the September 11th attacks. And even though there is no sound, it is the one and only link showing Jarrah and Atta anywhere at the same time. The video also shows Osama bin Laden speaking at a podium and also into a crowd which has Atta and Ziad Jarrah. This part also does not have sound, although it is this part does have sound, although it is entirely in Arabic. After returning to Hamburg, Jarrah dropped out of the university and began looking at flight schools. He claimed that this was to fulfill his childhood dream of being a pilot. After looking in several countries, he decided that none of the flight schools in Europe were adequate. On the advice of a childhood friend, he prepared to move to the United States. Immediately, Muhammad Atta and Marwan al-Shehi began taking flight lessons in Germany. Both Atta and al-Shehi start taking lessons on ultralight aircraft, while Ziad Jarrah moves to the United States. But just before he moves, he goes to a friend's wedding, Saeed Bahaji, who would also be a part of the Al-Quds Mosque of radical members. A videotape of the wedding will be discovered by German investigators shortly after 9/11, and eventually more than 20 men will be identified from the video. They included Ramzi bin al-Shib, Marwan al-Shehi, Ziad Jarrah, Munir al-Muttasek, Mohammed Haidar Zamar, and Abdel Ghani Mazoudi. The first video shows Bahaji's nuptial ceremony, followed by a series of radical militant speeches. According to German intelligence, an informant was active at this time in Al-Quds, and that the photo was given by the informant to German authorities who also were monitoring Zamar. Through the influence of Jarrah's closest friend, Ramzi bin al-Shib, Jarrah would be selected as being part of the September 11th attacks in the first place, with Zamar's approval. On June 27, 2000, Ziad Jarrah arrived in the United States for the first time, arriving at Newark International Airport. He then travels to Florida, where he enrolled full-time at the Florida Flight Training Center in Venice. It is also reported that a moving company called Classic International Movers had helped move one of a suspected 9/11 hijacker. This turned out to be false. The person that they moved would have to be no part of the 9/11 attacks. Jarrah had obtained his license to fly small aircraft in August of 2000 and began training to fly large jets later that year. After achieving his license, he would travel back to Germany to meet with Senguin and bring her back to the United States for a short while. It is alleged that the Classic International Movers had also contacts with those working at another moving company in New Jersey called Urban Moving Systems. Both moving companies had Israeli intelligence operatives working as movers within both companies. It is also alleged that Urban Moving Systems had a notebook where a number of phone numbers belonging to people at Classic International Movers. Could it be that Classic International Movers was monitoring the Hamburg cell in Florida, while Urban Moving Systems was monitoring the Hamburg cell in New Jersey? In 1999, Ziad Jarrah is briefly detained and questioned at the Dubai airport, and some reports will suggest that this is because he is already on a U.S. watch list. It is not known when he may be put on a watch list or why. The only information about this will come from conflicting accounts as to why Jarrah is stopped and questioned by immigration officials for several hours in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, on January 30th, 1999. It would also be reported that in the summer of 99, the CIA asked immigration officials all over the region to question anyone who may be returning from training camps in Afghanistan, and Jarrah fits the profile. Jarrah's passport, however, had an Al-Qaeda stamp. He was also carrying manuals of terrorism in his luggage. Dubai authorities immediately contacted the CIA, who would surprise Dubai officials by suggesting Jarrah should be released. This would only mean one thing. Ziad Jarrah was already being closely monitored by U.S. intelligence authorities. Of course, like clockwork, the CIA immediately denied the story. However, in 2012, CNN broke the story and claimed that the only reason Jarrah was detained at Dubai was at the behest of the CIA. In late January of 2001, Jarrah began to fly. He again flew to Sana'a to visit his father, who was ill. He then visited his girlfriend, Senguin, in Germany, and returned to the United States once again in late February. Ziad takes a trip to Jacksonville, Florida, where he stays for 3 days at the Ramada Inn. The purpose of the trip is not known, although he will return again 1 month later. At this time, Jarrah's immigration status is in violation, the temporary status afforded to him, but immigration charges remained pending. He is given a 6 month stay from immigration officials. This is highly unusual, as inspectors usually give business visitors 1 to 3 months, depending on the port of entry, and 6 months only when the visitor can document the purpose of the stay, which Jarrah apparently does not do. Jarrah later enrolls at the Florida Flight Training Center, just a couple of miles away from Huffman Aviation, where Muhammad Atta and Marwan al-Sheihi enrolled. However, according to the school's owner, Arnie Krutoff, he would later say that he told Jarrah obtaining a commercial license was hard. Quote, he was supposed to come back and finish his commercial pilot's license, but he did not. Later I found out that he did it somewhere else, end quote. It was here that many of the school students remembered Jarrah, and they thought very warmly of him. Jarrah would do quite well and obtained his license to fly small aircraft in August of 2000, and he would continue to fly aircraft at FTC even until 2001, the summer anyway. Jarrah would have deposits made from an unknown source, later to be proven from Saudi national abroad. June 1st, 2001, he would receive $3,000. And according to the 9/11 Commission report, the originator of these funds is not known, due to the fact they were traveler's checks. All this time, however, Jarrah remained separate from the other 9/11 hijackers, just like when he lived in Germany. By June 2001, Jarrah would enlist at Philadelphia flight school called Hortman Aviation. He tries to rent a pipey Cherokee plane to fly, but the instructor denies him the ability due to the fact he does not meet the qualifications met in his licenses. According to the 9/11 Commission, Jarrah continues to ask about flying a Piper plane across the Delaware River and into New York City. He's also accompanied by another man. Quote, on at least one occasion, when Jarrah attends Hortman Aviation, he is accompanied by another man, who he introduces as his uncle. The man is also Middle Eastern, but has a darker complexion than Jarrah. Hortman will later describe him as being of average height and is late to mid-40s. He is appropriately dressed. It does not appear to be a recent immigrant to the United States. Hortman is unable to tell whether the man understands English, as Jarrah does all the talking, end quote. Ziad actually should not be admitted at all because he is out of immigration status. He breaches immigration rules by taking a flight training course despite entering the U.S. as a tourist. But this is apparently not noticed by any agency. According to an associate of the 9/11 hijackers, Ramzi bin Al-Shib, and flight school owner Rudy Deckers of Huffman Aviation, the hijackers have more training on large jets than the FBI will disclose. The FBI will say that the 4 hijacker pilots never fly real large jets before 9/11 and have a total of approximately 17 sessions on large aircraft simulators, mostly on older models. Ziad Jarrah, who flies a Boeing 757 on 9/11, has 5 sessions on 727s and 737s. Ziad Jarrah would also apply for multiple driver's licenses along with numerous 9/11 hijackers, including Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Sheihi, Wael al-Sheihi, Ahmed al-Haznawi, and Hamza al-Ghamdi. On June 7, 2001, Ziad Jarrah takes a solo trip out to Las Vegas. Here, he would meet with other members of the hijacking team, Muhammad Atta and Marwan al-Sheihi. Jarrah would relate to bin al-Shib through a phone call that he was certain that he was being followed by security officers. It is also reported by al-Sheihi that he too thought he was being followed by agents while traveling to Las Vegas. Later, a phone call intercepted by the NSA will hear communication between Ramzi bin al-Shib and a person assumed to be Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The call lasts only mere minutes, but bin al-Shib seemed concerned about Ziad Jarrah, who was almost dropping out of the operation altogether due to his differences with Muhammad Atta, who would not allow Jarrah to see Senguin. Muhammad allows Jarrah's girlfriend to visit Jarrah. This decision is relayed from bin al-Shib to Jarrah, and on July 25, 2001, Jarrah visits Senguin in Germany. At no point during his visit did Ziad Jarrah ever mention any of the Hamburg cell by name, nor even bringing up any slightest of information about who he was seeing while in Florida. He would also meet with Ramzi bin al-Shib, telling him he would continue the mission. She said she never heard him mention the name Atta or anyone else from the list of suspects provided by the FBI later on. It was also the last time Jarrah would meet with Senguin. He returns to the United States on August 5th. At some time within August, Ziad Jarrah would apply for membership at US One Fitness and work out regularly. This would be to physically ready themselves for the hijacking operations. Several large deposits are made on the 9/11 hijacker pilots' accounts. The joint SunTrust account of Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shihi receives $8,600 on May 11th and $3,400 on May 22nd, and once again, $8,000 on June 1st. When $3,000 is also deposited in Ziad Jarrah's SunTrust account, the funding for these accounts are not reported in the 9/11 Commission, but conflicting independent accounts state Pakistan ISI from Saudi contacts were responsible. On August 27th, he checks into the Pin del Monte motel located in Laurel, Maryland, only a mile away from Valencia, where 4 other hijackers were staying. Ziad gives the attendant a Florida address and driver's license number. He pays for 3 nights with a Visa card, but leaves the following evening. On August 30th, 2001, Ziad Jarrah purchases a ticket for himself for United Airlines Flight 93 from the United Airlines website. On September 7th, the 4 hijackers of Flight 93 apparently drive in Newark from Florida. The days leading up to the first week of September are murky, as FBI officials and 9/11 Commission report contradict about the whereabouts of Ziad Jarrah as well as some of the hijackers, times and dates which conflict with one another. Jarrah's family back home in Lebanon continued to send money to their son. His monthly stipend would help him along the way. On September 9th, Ziad Jarrah is stopped in Maryland for speeding, ticketed, and released. No red flags show up when his name is run through the computer by the state police, even though he had already questioned in January 2001 by the United Arab Emirates at the request of the CIA for suspected involvement in terrorist activities in the evening hours of September 10th. Ziad Jarrah would write a final letter to Azel Senguin. In the letter, he was very cryptic. You should be very proud because this is an honor, and in the end, will bring happiness to everyone. Hold on to what you have until we meet again, and then we will have a very beautiful eternal life where no problems exist and where there is no mourning, in castles of gold and silver, and I did not leave you alone. The letter would never reach Azel. By the time the letter arrived, it was intercepted by German authorities due to the fact Senguin was at the time sent to witness protection and that the letter had the wrong address written on it. The letter was returned to the United States by the Postal Services, where it was discovered and delivered to the FBI. How on earth did Ziad Jarrah manage to write an incorrect address to his girlfriend of 3 years, knowing it would be his final communication to her? According to the 9/11 Commission, on September 11, 2001, Ziad Jarrah phones his girlfriend, Azel Senguin, about an hour before he boards United Airlines Flight 93, according to the Los Angeles Times. Senguin is currently recovering from a minor operation in a hospital in Germany where she lives. Senguin would later recount, he was very brief. He said he loved me 3 times. I asked what was up. He hung up shortly afterwards. It was so short and rather strange, him saying that repeatedly. However, according to conflicting reports from the FBI, they claimed Jarrah phones his girlfriend from the Days Inn hotel he was staying at while in Newark. They would also manage to find a cardboard replica photo of a pilot's cabin in the hotel room he was staying. During the final days, Ahmed al Hasnawi would visit Jarrah in his room, the only link to the hijackers ever while inside the United States. It is asserted by the FBI that the four hijackers checked in for the flight between 7:03 a.m. and 7:39 Eastern Time. Ahmad Ibrahim al Hasnawi, Saeed al Ghamdi, Ahmed al Nami, and Ziad Samir Jarrah. However, the flight is delayed for 41 minutes on the runway at Newark Airport, New Jersey. It will take off at 8:42 a.m. The reason for the delay, according to the 9/11 Commission, was traffic on the runway. However, in the days preceding this, it is noted that even within just 2 days before the attacks, Ziad Jarrah would rent a room alone from the hijackers at the Days Inn Motel in New Jersey, renting a room just for himself and a room for the three muscle hijackers. As the plane took off, later it is heard by air traffic controllers at Cleveland Center. What was heard was from the audio of Flight 93 Captain Jason Dahl yelling as he pressed the call signal, "Mayday! Mayday!" At 9:28 a.m., Flight 93 was hijacked. It is suspected that Ziad Jarrah, seemingly at the controls of the plane, announced over the speakers to the passengers, "Ladies and gentlemen, hear the captain. Please sit down. Remain seating. We have a bomb on board, so sit." At least two of the cell phone calls made by passengers indicate that all the hijackers they saw were wearing red bandanas and indicated that one of the men, believed to be either Ahmed al Hasnawi or Ahmed al Nami, had a box tied around their torso and claimed that there was a bomb inside. One call was made by flight attendant Sandra Bradshaw, who also reported a strange anomaly that there were only three hijackers, and all of them were dark skinned males. Ziad Jarrah was very light skinned. At 10:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 93 crashes into an empty field just north of Somerset County Airport, about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, as the passengers tried to enter the cockpit. The point of impact is a reclaimed coal mine, known locally as the Diamond T Mine, that was reportedly abandoned in 1996. Investigators searching the crash site would find the Boeing's cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, the only plane where the black boxes would be fully recovered. The cockpit voice recorder would unearth a very glaring anomaly which would contradict later the FBI and the 9/11 Commission narrative of there being four hijackers on the flight. Many of the phone calls made from Flight 93 did the same. According to Dina Burnett, when her husband, Tom Burnett, first calls her from Flight 93, Tom reports to her that one of the hijackers has a bomb while another has a gun. However, there are conflicting reports about the gun possibility. This would also become a point of contention as American Airlines officials also reported in the early hours that a gun was also reported as being in the hands of one of the hijackers aboard American Airlines Flight 11. This, too, was summarily dismissed as an error by American Airlines. The draft report, which was never published, was as follows, quote, "The American Airlines FAA Principal Security Inspector was notified by Suzanne Clark of American Airlines Corporate Headquarters that on board flight attendant contact American Airlines Operations Center and informed them that a passenger in 10B had killed and shot a passenger in 9B at 9:20 a.m. The passenger killed was Daniel Lewin, shot by passenger Satam al-Saskami. One bullet was reportedly to have been fired," end quote. Dina Burnett was adamantly, however, regarding what Tom saw. Quote, Dina later told the London Times, "He told me one of the hijackers had a gun. He wouldn't have made it up. Tom grew up around guns. He was an avid hunter, and we have guns in our house. If he said there was a gun on board, there was," end quote. About 6 calls were made from Flight 93 to loved ones, reporting only seeing 3 hijackers on board and not 4, as stated by the FBI 9/11 Commission. According to Alice Hoagland, she receives a call from her son, Mark Bingham. Quote, I'm flying from Newark to San Francisco. I'm calling from the airphone. The plane has been taken over by 3 guys. They say they have a bomb. End quote. Liz Glick receives a call from her husband, Jeremy Glick, from Flight 93, in which Jeremy stated, quote, 3 of them put on red headbands, stood up, yelled, and ran into the cockpit. End quote. Flight attendant Cece Lyles will call her husband, wasn't there to receive the call, but she left a message stating, quote, I'm sorry, babe. I don't know what to say. There's 3 guys hijacking the plane. End quote. According to GTE phone operator Lisa Jefferson, she receives a call from passenger Todd Beamer, who relayed the following information. Quote, when I took the call over, the man on the other end told me his name was Todd Beamer and that there's 3 people who have taken over the flight, end quote. Beamer says of the hijackers, it doesn't seem like they know how to fly the plane. The passengers decide to revolt. Using a food cart, they try and ram into the pilot's cabin. This after the passengers subdued the 1 hijacker guarding the cockpit door, as to which hijacker that was is unknown. This information is verified by the audio played during the 2006 trial of Zacarias Moussaoui, the suspected 20th hijacker. As family members hear a commotion between the single hijacker guarding the cabin door and the onrush of multiple passengers, one of them, Todd Beamer, according to the transcript released to the public, not the audio, the 2 men in the cockpit decide whether to finish it off by plummeting the plane into the ground. At 1:00:37 of the transcript, the man sitting next to the pilot is heard saying to the pilot of the plane, up, down, to thwart off the onrush of passengers. Up, down, Saeed. Up, down, Saeed. With this transcript, it is presumably Saeed El-Ghamdi at the pilot seat. The next and obvious inquiry, where is Ziad Jarrah? As to why there were no intercept jets from NORAD, according to NORAD official Major General Craig McKinley, he testified to the 9/11 Commission that another reason why the Langley jets are vectored east originally is that air traffic over Northeast Corridor is so complex that to just launch fighters into that air traffic system can cause potential damage or mid-air collision. So we rely on the FAA to deconflict those corridors. The blame was laid right on the FAA by NORAD for failure to receive proper data at the present time. According to the FAA's National Operations Manager, Ben Sliney, when he testified before the 9/11 Commission, quote, available to us at the command center, of course, is the military cell, which was our liaison with the military services. They were present at all of the events that occurred on 9/11. The normal protocols for the events that were transpiring then is to say hijacked aircraft, which requires a notification to NORAD. Those, at least I was given to understand, were made promptly. The notifications on each hijack, end quote. However, the claims made by NORAD about not knowing about the hijacking of Flight 93 was quite revealing. General Richard Myers, the acting chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, will write that in the NMSCC, quote, we learned that there was apparently a 4th hijacked aircraft, United Airlines Flight 93 out of Newark, bound nonstop for San Francisco. Like the other planes, it had switched off its transponder, making it much harder, if not impossible, to track on ground radar, end quote. Immediately after the crash, Jarrah's family would be held in absolute disbelief. Jarrah's family and friends claimed that Jarrah did not exhibit the same smoldering political resentments or cultural conservatism as Muhammad Atta. He was not raised with a background of religious conviction and did not hold to an obviously conservative lifestyle. Personnel at the flight school Jarrah attended at Florida Flight Training Center were in complete disbelief. They also described him as a normal person, loved by most at the school. Jarrah called his family just 2 days earlier about coming for a wedding and his girlfriend, Azel Sanguine, just 3 hours before supposedly boarding United Airlines Flight 93. Sanguine described this conversation as pleasant and normal. She also claimed that he never mentioned any of the hijackers by their names or mentioning who he was with. After the finalization of two congressional inquiries, the Joint House Inquiry and the 9/11 Commission, the story seemed quite set in stone. Or was it? On July 12, 2008, Ali Al Jarrah would be arrested by Hezbollah authorities, eventually held over to the Lebanese military for questioning about his 30-year-long espionage career for the Israeli Mossad. He is said to have been paid at least $300,000 over the years by Israeli intelligence. Ali's brother, Yusuf Al Jarrah, is said to have helped him spy, but few details of the case have been reported. Ali Al Jarrah would be Ziad Jarrah's uncle. Reports state they did not know each other well. Asim Al Jarrah, the former intelligence spy for Libya and Iraq intelligence, continued to deny his career in espionage as well, but many who knew him scoffed at his denial. Asim Al Jarrah would also be the only family member who believed Ziad Jarrah was indeed an Islamic fundamentalist convert who piloted Flight 93. And he also stated that he had not seen or heard from Ziad Jarrah for many years. The Jarrah family have singularly disavowed Asim from family functions. However, investigators looming through the smoldering remains in Shanksville, where Flight 93 crashed, would end up finding some revealing items along with the cockpit and flight data recorder. A charred passport belonging to Ziad Jarrah and a work permit with a handwritten number belonging to one Asim Al Jarrah, the same distant cousin who claimed to not have any contact with Ziad Jarrah for many years. According to his cousin Salim Al Jarrah, who went along to Germany back in 1996 to study abroad, quote, "We came here to Germany so we could live better, not to die for some insane idea. We don't know if it was really Ziad on that plane. It seemed it was, or he would have come forward by now. But if he died in that crash, he died as a victim, like the other passengers." End quote. Years later, in an interview, a classmate of Azel Sanguine from the pre-med classes in Greifswald, Abdullah al-Maghdadi, no relation to the Abdurrahman al-Maghdadi that Ziad had met, stated that he thought Ziad Jarrah was not truly a follower of Islam. "I used to criticize him for living with her. By our religion, this living together before marriage is not allowed. He was a weak Muslim, I must say."